Hi, I'm Billy, the Whisky Exchange ambassador, and I'm joined today by Phil and Simon Thompson from Dornoch Distillery. So, hello guys, how are you doing?
Hey Billy, hey Billy, super good, super good. You're looking good, by the way. I think lockdown's been kind to you. I think the beard's kind of feeling a little bit more trim, a little bit more neat.
It's the wonders of shaving all of your beard off at the beginning of lockdown and then never shaving again, but having a controlled space of time to do it in. So yeah, there we go. Lockdown has done well. But anyway, as we were talking about earlier on, so I was trying to work out what your job titles are. So what would you say? Dornoch Distillery up there, Northern Highlands. What are your roles at the distillery?
Well, Phil, yeah, well, we all do everything, but I guess there's, we've all got our own focuses and strengths, and we play to those. So Phil makes, as well as getting involved in production, daily running of the distillery, managing, etc. Phil also, selects the casks for the independent bottling, makes all the numbers add up, so I don't bankrupt us every week with the world's most expensive ingredients and the world's least efficient production. So Phil kind of saves me from ruining the business. So he keeps it all together, and I try and make stuff.
Simon's the director of inefficiency.
Director of inefficiency and inconsistency.
Excellent. That's what I like to hear. So anyway, do you want to give us a little bit of a rundown of sort of like how you guys started, where you come from, and about the distillery?
Okay, so we come from a hospitality background. So we had a family hotel, which is quite a famous whiskey bar, in the Dornoch Castle Whiskey Bar. We ran that for quite a number of years, and we always kind of had a plan to sort of finish up with the hotel, start a distillery, and kind of move on and try and make our own spirit, mainly because we were kind of obsessed with, in quotes, old style liquid. And from there we kind of, we hoped to kind of sell the hotel and move on and start distillery, but that never really happened. So we ended up crowdfunding the distillery back in 2016.
Yeah, 2016. Yeah, I put in, I kind of put an ultimatum out to my brother and my dad, and said if the hotel's still on the market at this point, because business was good, didn't really need to sell, but my dad had a little run-in with the big C and was kind of thinking about considering retirement and stuff. But yeah, there just wasn't anything worth selling for, and so I put the ultimatum that if it hadn't sold by this point, then we go 100% all in on doing a little distillery here and just keep things rolling at the hotel. So that's that date passed, and then we're like, okay, doing it now. Here we go, 100% all in, and we got stuck in. Ran the crowdfunding, did a little video, got money from people who have got casks in return now, but they were really doing it on a bit of blind faith and trust. So, but yeah, it all worked out in the end. Sold our house, put it into the distillery, and got up and running with no debt, no shareholders. So there's no interest beyond our own in terms of what we can do on a daily basis. There's no one to tell us, well, other than like hard practical reality. So yeah, it's good. And we spend all the money we make on whiskey, which is what we did before, but it was all in bottle format. All your spare money was spent on rare bottles of whiskey. Now all your spare money is spent on casks in a warehouse, really. So not much of a change. It's just the next evolution of whiskey collector, enthusiast, connoisseur getting out of control.
So you start off buying old bottles of other people's whiskey, and then you build a distillery and just invest in your own whiskey.
Well, the bar's the intermediate there. So you have to do the bar next, and then the distillery. So it's a natural progression. So it's the final evolution, or maybe the final evolution is yet to come.
Okay. So you started off by building the distillery out the back of the hotel originally. So you converted. Is it converted fire station?
Yes, correct. So it was a town's fire station up until the 1960s, and it was built in 1881, and it was used as junk storage for the hotel. So essentially, we decided that was a decent enough space to put it in, which is
just
how many square meters is it?
Oh, was it like the ground floor is maybe like it's 6 by 5 meters.
Yeah.
6 meters by 5 meters, and then we put in a second floor with all the washbacks in it.
60 square meters, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's
tiny for the.
The average the average house size in the UK is like 84 square meters, and so we're a chunk smaller than that. And in that space, we've managed to fit a mash tun that we can do up to 350 kilogram mashes. We've got 6,000 litre wooden washbacks. We've got 1,000 litre copper pot still, 600 litre copper pot still. We've got a gin still. We've got a 2,000 litre wash charger, 2,000 litre water tank, hot liquor tank, hot water tank.
1,000 litre low wines and faints receiver.
1,000 litre low wines and faints receiver, and all the associated pumps, heat exchangers, hosing, cabling, electronics, and it's like working in a submarine. So there's not a lot of space.
Yeah, it's pretty tight, very tight.
Yeah, I mean we've crammed a huge amount of functionality into a tiny space.
But we're happy with the production flow at the moment. It's a good flow of production.
Yeah, the production is great, and even though the place is tiny, because there's no debt on it, there's no shareholders. I think we can make it all work. We don't have like £10 million of funding to pay back over the next X number of years. So it was quite good for us to kind of we could get our cash flow established with other streams through our gin and through independent bottling, and that just about covers the bills for the world's most expensive barley and world's least efficient production. Me and Phil can take home just about enough money to get by in the meantime, and it all works.
So you talk about the most expensive barley, most inefficient production. So what's your focus when it comes to actually making spirit? Because tiny space, expensive ingredients, and I know you guys like old-fashioned whiskey, so it's not quite the same as your average distillery.
No, it's very, very hands-on, manual, but also there's a huge amount of interaction between the person and the spirit. So we put at each point there's decisions to be made. And we give a lot of freedom to everyone. So we've got me and Phil, and then we've got two other guys, Ewan and Jacob. And so we've got the overarching philosophy, but then we like to of trying to recreate old style whiskey, and that's a combination of a lot of different factors, from appropriate yeast varieties, barley varieties, mashing techniques, fermentation times, types of fermentation vessels. So there's even some weird stuff that we discussed with you before camera of some of our latest playthings. And that's just today. There's always something strange like that going on, but it makes sense from a certain perspective. That's going a little bit too far back to like the sort of mid 1800s and before, really. But it's an interesting experiment. So we're really just kind of playing with it and trying to find amazing old styles. We're not looking to clone anything in particular, but we're looking to be influenced by those styles and kind of build on that for ourselves. So what about you, Phil?
I just went to get a whiskey.
You just went to get a whiskey.
And then I was watching Billy.
It's only 9:30 in the morning, so.
Sorry, I just got a random call from someone trying to leave me a parcel outside my flat. They're now leaving my parcel outside my flat, so it's all good. So you're talking about sort of these old-fashioned experiments, because you remember, as you said, we were talking on camera, but off camera beforehand about something. So you can tell us a little bit about that one. If you're, I don't know how secretive you are about what you do. So as far as I can tell, you're not that.
Well, I'm generally quite open, because I've always been of the opinion that no one else is stupid enough to do what we do. But I think recently some people have been kind of dipping their toes a little bit, so I don't want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you. I mean, I think the information is always available if people want to do the research and figure it all out. But I mean, it's, if people are stupid enough to do it as inefficiently as we do for a prolonged period of time, perhaps as experiments people are doing it, but I don't see it being a consistent option for a lot of these bigger distilleries than us. But Yeah, I mean,
all right. Okay. One little thing. So we're just being a little bit more cautious recently about some of our hard-won secrets, I guess. There's been a lot of evolution over the last 3+ years in terms of, it wasn't, obviously the whole thing wasn't as simple as we first thought, where if you do X, Y, and Z, as many enthusiasts believe, then that's the recipe for.
I mean, we thought that we could literally just throw tins of pineapple into the wash bags and get fruity whiskey, but didn't turn out that way.
Yeah, so it didn't turn out as straightforward as you initially thought. Like our early stuff's really, really good,
Yeah.
but in terms of achieving some of the deliberate results of some of the more extreme versions of old whiskies, that's taken a lot
it was
more.
Kind of 12 months into production, wasn't it, that we started to really, for me, I felt like we started to get that. We always had that waxy, oily, slightly kind of berry flavour to our early spirit. And then as sort of we got 12-18 months into production, I found that kind of changed into that sort of nice, almost verging on tropical fruitiness to it. So you start to get sort of pineapple and the white stone fruits coming through.
Yeah,
but that was an evolution of production, whereas the early ones we went in with our philosophy as to like, we think it could be this way, but we certainly got an interesting spirit, lots of body, lots of texture.
Very, 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 very complex, huge amount of kind of compacted flavors. But of course, like the sort of holy grail of like the extreme tropical fruit. That's something that didn't start evolving until kind of some of the later production. And as I said, it's wasn't quite as straightforward as you first thought, that do X, Y, and Z, get old style tropical whiskey. Afraid it's not as simple as that. And there's a lot of really interesting little interactions that you would never consider until you really
actually started production.
Until you really go beyond a deep dive and you have that feedback process, and occasionally along the line you'll have some happy accidents and you go, oh. And even looking at some of the more bizarre stuff, even just like the supply chain and storage conditions of yeast in the 1960s, and which has an influence. And that's just one of many, many, many little things that we've been picking up along the way. We're still occasionally hunting down and bothering people that used to work at legendary distilleries in the 1960s, and so you're still picking up, you're like just teasing it out for any little thing that might make a difference. And sometimes everything makes a difference, and it's just finding those points where it's something significant that you may have overlooked before. So it's still an ongoing process, and like I said, we're not looking to clone, we're looking to kind of take these principles and apply them to what we really want to do. So it's been a really,
the human element's important to us as well. The actual physical interaction between us, Jacob and Ewan, and the spirit. Our perception of what the cut point should be based on based on variable conditions. So each individual is able to make a decision on when they're cutting their spirit, which I think is one of the most important things that's missing a lot in modern whiskey production, where everything tends to be kind of preset off-site, instead of the staff members having a physical interaction with the spirit and saying, okay, well, because we mashed in at a slightly different temperature, or the fermentation was slightly longer, the yeast variety was slightly different, or the yeast was spent, or we did a repitch, that the flavor changes, and they're able to pick that up in the spirit and say, okay, well, I'm not going to cut at this point, I'm going to cut at this point. And that physical interaction, I think, is one of the most important elements we have in our production, which
because there's so much inconsistency and we're always switching around little bits and pieces. You with the cut points, you need to trust the judgment of whoever's on shift, and we've all got ever so slightly differing preferences as how we make them as well, and we're very, very happy with that. I'd rather someone be confident in their own judgment and happy with their own judgment on that decision, than always trying to stick to a rule, because I think their judgment would be better than my rule. If I was to say you always do it for this style, you always do it here, I think it's much better to have the judgment involved.
I think the other thing from our perspective is our production is so low that we're never going to be like, we're going to have a consistent 5-year-old or 7-year-old or 10-year-old single malt whiskey release, 3, 4, 5,000 bottles a year. That's never going to happen. So we're kind of, being the whiskey geeks we are, embrace the inconsistency of the spirit, but also in single cask form moving forward. So it's likely that the way that we release our spirit will be single cask market exclusives, which will allow us to kind of showcase the kind of idiosyncrasies of production and of the individual cask, which I think for us is really important, and also to kind of the type of people that have an interest in our spirit. They're more interested in sort of like single cask variations of our distillate, as opposed to just looking at a big vatting of like, these are first fill bourbon casks, or these are STR casks vatted together as a standard 3 or 5-year-old spirit. For us, let's do single cask, let's see how it goes, because we don't have the liquids to be able to do a vatting, and I'm not sure it's something we'd necessarily want to do if we did have the liquid. But yeah,
play with it.
Yeah, we could do it. We could do vattings, but I'd prefer not to.
Yeah, I mean, because, and that might be for me, by the way, because I know it's got your name on it, but it was meant to be for me.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, where were we? Inconsistency. We're inconsistent.
Yeah, inconsistent.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a bit of an issue down the line. If there's even the semblance of people liking our juice, we're so dinky that we're maybe putting out about 12,000 RLA a year, so we're filling about just under 19,000 bulk litres into cask after that annual evaporation. So down the line, there's not going to be a lot of juice out there of ours. So that's going to be a tricky one as well.
I think there's things. The thing is, I think it's different drivers for it. Like the reason we're in this is not because we're like, okay, I want to have a big consistent whiskey brand that we're selling 100,000 bottles a year. We never really went in with it with that philosophy. We just wanted to make as best whiskey as possible based around our own philosophies, give ourselves an okay lifestyle, give our staff a good kind of lifestyle, and a nice place to work, as opposed to kind of like, well, we don't want to take on a marketing team and and have to do that sort of thing. For me, I'd rather just kind of let's remain small and have a strong nucleus, and maybe see in 5 or 10 years time what happens then.
Well, we've never done marketing really, not even for the gin as well. We prefer to invest in the ingredients, the time, the process, rather than the marketing budget. I always think the money's better put, the money and the value is better put in on the front end to make a better product, rather than putting the money in on the back end trying to sell a product. So it seems to work okay for us.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's fine. We seem to sell everything we bottle single cask wise, with the philosophy of keep the liquid as good as possible and the price as fair as possible, and generally it sells. Decent liquid at a fair price. Who'd have thought it would sell quite well? But it's becoming more and more difficult, I think, with single casks. I mean, you will know as well, seeing what's coming onto the market, onto the Whisky Exchange all the time, is just the prices are creeping, especially some of the pricing on like Isla malts, especially things like Bowmore and Ardbeg and Lefroy from independent bottlers. Prices are, I don't know where the threshold is for these things. I mean, you might know better or you might have a better kind of grasp of it than I, but I guess it's getting difficult though, isn't it?
At what price point does it sit on the shelf for too long, I guess?
Well, that's it. I mean, but if people are asking over, £250 for like a independent 16-year-old Bowmore, to me that's, it seems like it's too expensive. I don't know. Maybe we've just been spoiled. I don't know.
Yeah, that's one of the big things I think we've seen change, over the past sort of like, couple of decades, is that thing of people realizing, one, that whiskey has been undervalued, and now we're tipping over to the other direction of, have we gone too far into the actual valuing of it at an appropriate level? As you say, those if it's smoky and it's over 10 years old, all of a sudden independent bottlings are just climbing into the stratosphere. Because that's one of the things is, you guys aren't only a distillery, you also have your independent bottling line, the Thompson Brothers bottles. So you're running around sort of looking out for rum as well as whiskey. How have you sort of seen the difference between the rum and the whiskey market when it comes to sort of like, finding casks and pricing and all that sort of thing?
Well, we first bought our first rum we bottled was a Coroni 97. We've done 3 Coroni 97s, and we struggled to sell our first 2 releases of Coroni. We found it really difficult to sell, and then just one day the second release sold out super quick.
What was the original RRP on the first one?
95, something like that. I don't know, 18-year-old Coroni, I think was about 95, which we felt was like, a little bit expensive. And then
it's
we
like,
did
this cask's really good, but we might have to charge a little more than we want for it.
Yeah, I don't know. We bottled things. With the rums, we tended to bottle things that we liked. So they tended to be heavy rums, high ester, hot style. So we've done like Versailles, the SXG diamonds, the Versailles wooden still. We've done 2 of those. We've done some Money Musks. We've done some, we did a Worthy Park with you guys. We've done another Worthy Park. We've done 3 Coronis. So you kind of get an idea of the style of rum that we like. But I think, again, the prices are creeping on the rums.
Yeah. Well, we've always been chasing really good value on the rums, but then it always seems to be that when we find the next, kind of like the next thing we're really into on the rums, that it's like 6 months, a year later, and then everyone else has the same idea and the prices start pushing up, and then you're like, okay, let's keep looking. Where else can we find value?
And we bottled like 3 or 4 1996 Ben Nevises, and it was like, we just bought as much. We're like, this is amazing liquid, we should bottle as much as we can. And then even the 2012 we bottled was great liquid for the money. And now even the younger Ben Nevises, seeing stuff getting offered on the brokers market is really creeping. So it's kind of like you're trying to stay ahead of the curve and keep finding good liquid wherever possible. But we've moved all of our bottling facilities to Dornoch, so we've got our warehouse, our bottling, our distribution now in Dornoch, which means we're not working through. We're talking earlier about bottling halls, so we now can control everything, which means that we can. You want a sample, you go, you get a sample, you record it, and you don't have to wait like weeks and then, wait for something to be shipped to you and so on. So it's really positive from that perspective. But what we can do is we can also bottle any spirit now in Dornoch. So we're exploring the possibilities of bringing over some different spirits from all over the world. Obviously, it takes a little bit of work to try and find good liquid, but we're going to start looking at things like grappa, and we've got some cognac coming, although it won't be labeled as cognac. Or will it be labeled as cognac?
No, we're going to leave that alone. We're not going to label it as cognac,
but we're going to be bottling some brandy from a region of France that makes very good quality bubbly wine. And we're going to be hopefully keep that at a nice fair price. But the liquid's great, and the more stuff we can bottle that's got really good liquid at a fair price, we'll keep doing it. But
that's it.
It's getting difficult.
There'll be a bit of a clear out on some good cognac that's some good French brandies that are stored in that are bonded in the UK, because I think 2022 is the cutoff for it. So there's some good value just now, where anyone who's sitting on them that hasn't quite had a plan with it has not a lot of time to figure out what they're going to do with them. So there'll be a little bit of good cognac kicking around the UK for a while. I think I've seen a couple others. Some people have risked using the name cognac, some people haven't.
But we're not, are we?
No, it was a little bit. It was just it was just a little bit off to do it for sure. And the BNIC in cognac, they're like the equivalent of the SWA in cognac. They can be quite aggressive as well. So if you're not, it's best not to risk it and just do good quality. I think as well, we're in a position now where people kind of trust that we're quite good at getting good quality spirit, putting it out at fair value. So if we bought something random like that, then they're more than willing to give it a shot and roll with us on it.
We're also noticing probably the disclosure on spirits now, especially single malt. Distilleries, you're not able to buy disclosed spirits. I think people are being very protective of the brand names now. So
I think
which is understandable.
Yeah, really, so we did a few ones which were labelled distilled in Sutherland with like the cat labels. Done quite a few like that. Which obviously there's 2 distilleries in Sutherland, and we're one of them, and we don't have 20-year-old stock, so you can kind of figure that one out. But I think the next 2 casks we've got lined up, I don't think we're going to stick with the distilled in Sutherland. But there will be cats on the label, so look for the cats on the label.
Always a little hint in there somewhere. So, but this is sort of interesting because you guys have been branching out from your sort of traditional sort of whiskey background into these other spirits, and seeing the bar, which I know you guys are still involved with. How have you seen people's preferences for sort of old and rare spirits sort of change over the past sort of like 20 years? Because it always used to be whiskey was the big thing, maybe a bit of cognac, but is that changing now? Are they people branching out more?
We, to be honest, not really in our bar. We list some rums, we list a lot of our own rums, and we just don't really sell them because you can come in and, for the same money have a well-aged single malt whiskey in our bar. So it's kind of like, we've always found it a little bit difficult to list anything that's not Scotch whiskey, so we've got a really good selection of Chichibu. We've got some nice Yamazaki, some single cask Miyagikyo, single cask Hakushu. And to be honest, apart from the Chichibus, they're relatively slow to sell. Even our American whiskies, if we open a Pappy or something, it's like not super fast to sell. I think just because the selection we have in our bar, you can get for the same money of, say, spending like £30 for a Pappy 15-year-old, you can go and buy like a really good old single malt whiskey from a local distillery for the same money. So we don't really see it in our bar.
Yeah, it's not just that as well. It's also, if you're in the North Highlands, you're probably drinking whiskey, even if normally you're a cognac drinker, rum drinker, whatever. You get the guys who have they're into a specific thing and just they wander in just randomly like, oh, you have this really rare American whiskey or something or rum, and then they're like, that's my thing. But that's not very often, and usually even if you are into those things and you're in whiskey land, you're probably having whiskey. So it would be different if you transplanted our bar into, say, like the centre of London. I'm sure that it would be very different there. But I think because of where we are, if you're in the North Highlands, even if you're into other types of spirits as well, you're probably drinking whiskey.
Yeah. So rum's a bit of a hard sell on the bar. Cognac's relatively hard sell.
Well, good cognacs. There's always people who just drink a standard cognac.
Yeah. But most people who come into our bar, even if they are cognac drinkers, will be like, I'm in Scotland, I'm going to have a Scotch whiskey. So it's just kind of, So I would say from our perspective, certainly what we see in the bar, it's not really a big thing where we are at all.
But the big thing you guys have is on the old and rare stuff, because that's the thing which when I come up to Donna, the thing I'm looking for is the weird and wonderful old bottles you guys have managed to acquire at auctions or private sales and things like that. How have you seen that change? Because there was this big push, in the general market, everybody's just drinking whiskies that you could find in shops and things like that. But increasingly, even amongst outside of that sort of the core of people who like these old and rare bottles, there seems to be more of an interest in the things you can't find anymore. Are you seeing that as well?
Yeah, we're doing. I mean, I always thought in our bar, we've got more and more drams at the £100, £150 mark than we've ever had, because they are actually selling, which is, 3 or 4 years ago, I would have thought our threshold in our bar, I think £50 would be an really expensive whiskey for our bar. Whereas now we can kind of sustain stuff at £100, £150 a measure, £200 a measure, and people are actually coming in and buying them. It's not European people. It's generally going to be folk from the Far East or folk from North America who'll come in and have them at these prices, mainly because the North Americans, they can't seem to get as many of these rare bottles as they can. So if they're big into it, they can't seem to get them over there in the same way as we can.
Yeah, that's certainly, well, as prices have changed, then I think the demographics have changed a little bit. And a lot of the European guys, have had it so good for so long, and then they've kind of gone from, if they came here 5 years ago and they're getting these like amazing things for like £5 or £10 a measure, and then now like some stuff is kind of priced at like £100 a measure, and even then it's not a big markup on it at all. No. It's below a good chunk below like standard markups relative to auction value and stuff. So it's still offering good value. But if you've kind of come up through the sort of whiskey enthusiast scene and you've had access to all these things for amazing prices for so long, it's kind of like, I don't really want to spend, I really want to taste that, but I don't want to spend £100 on it. I've had all these kinds of that kind of thing and all those sorts of things already for very little money, really.
Well, I think one of the things I'd like to see lifted in Scotland is, we have to stick to 2.5 CL measures. I would love to see, for the rarer bottles, if we were able with the licensing board to be able, or weights and measures, to be able to do 1 CL. I think it would open up a lot of these older bottles to a lot of people, especially people like, I wouldn't think about coming in and spending £100 on a measure of whiskey unless it was something I was sharing with a couple of people who I thought, like, I'm never going to have this again.
Well, that's because I know how much you get paid.
Yeah. No, but do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
having the ability to have a 1 CL of that would allow me to taste it, or, so things like that would work. But I mean, we've got enough on our plate to kind of start arguing with the licensing board and weights and measures on 1 CL more measures in bars.
Yeah, you could probably make a push for it and get away with it, but energy's better spent elsewhere right now. Really, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that would be a big improvement. I think most of us would rather go, for your into your whiskey, you'd rather have like 20 grams at 1 CL than 8 grams at 25 ml.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the big things we're noticing at the moment with sort of like whiskey shows and things like that, with these things going online. All of a sudden, when you're buying tasting packs, you're buying things in sort of 3 CL bottles and things like that, and it all of a sudden becomes not so much whiskey to drink, not so much variation, which is difficult, but unfortunately, the law does get in the way sometimes. So
yeah, 1 CL is good for it's brilliant for shows. It allows you to wander around all day just tasting without, if you're responsible.
Yeah.
No repercussions.
Minimal repercussions. Drink responsibly, everybody. Yes.
Yeah.
I may have an entire selection of 1 CLs just sat on my desk just in case. Yeah, that's a 1. So yeah, the joys of sample swapping. So. But so you guys have seen all these sort of changes and things like that over the years, and you've built a distillery based on this old-fashioned style of whiskey, trying to sort of, as you were saying before we started recording, trying to take things back in time almost on the production front. But what do you see sort of like the future to be? And as I was saying, the future you want and the future you actually see, and whether they actually coincide at all. But what do you see coming up for both the distillery and for the whiskey industry?
Personally, Dornoch Distillery, if we can kind of sustain ourselves for the next few years, we've got decent volumes of our own stock, enough to kind of do okay. So yeah, I think with the distillery, sustain ourselves, gradual growth, not take on too much, trying to kind of be selective on what we do with our time and how we spend it. And I think probably just creating a stronger core for now, and then maybe in a few years' time, I don't know, who knows in a few years' time, but we've got nothing like we want to expand to this and we want to do that.
Yeah, we want to
start get a strong core and then kind of figure everything out.
Yeah, we did almost do the big expansion project, and with the old Coronas and all that, we're quite glad we decided to play it a little bit more conservatively. And so I think for the next couple of years anyway, I think it's more kind of, there'll be a lot of little improvements, more toys to play with that'll give us a bit more levers to pull, and just kind of making it a bit production a bit smoother and a bit easier on ourselves.
Yeah,
I mean, we're
easier on the body as
well.
We're
all getting older, and we don't want to mess ourselves up too much with all this kind of heavy lifting. Manual stuff, so there'll probably be a few things to
labor-saving devices.
Yeah, a few labor-saving devices, time-saving. You've got some thoughts on some expansion stuff down the line, but I don't think we're in a big rush for it just now. I think we want to stabilize because we don't do like the big borrowing thing. I think we want to stabilize our cash flow, because the independent bottling's getting bigger and bigger, and we'll have dribs and drabs over the next few years of our own stock going out, so we can stabilize our cash flow and then kind of take it from there. Just want to make sure that we are stable, rock solid, and like the cockroach that's hard to kill, really. And that worked well for us going into COVID as well, because we kind of set ourselves up in that way with the sort of cockroach philosophy.
We weren't like reliant on, we had to sell 1,000 bottles of gin a month to survive. We were kind of pretty well.
Yeah, you might. Yeah, I think you'll see a softening in the cask market, because we're getting whiff that a number of companies are looking to get the just for the balance, just for the profit and loss, for the balance sheet, for the investors. I
think a lot of the bigger distilleries, I don't know, I mean, you'll maybe know better than I, Billy, but I would think a lot of the bigger distilleries that are relying on sales through retail channels, like supermarket retail channels,
travel retail,
and also hospitality. So the big brands who are relying on hospitality, I would think they've not had a great year. So we might see a softening in the cask market, but to be honest, I kind of doubt it. I mean, there's so many, every day a new broker pops up trying to sell you stuff that, like, from the guy to
two rungs up the ladder.
2 rungs up the ladder. It's so I don't know. I mean, I've been saying it. I suppose the same thing as, like, the whiskey market. We've been saying it for years. Oh, there's going to be a softening on the rare bottle market. It can't keep going like this. Well, no, it turns out it can. More people are getting involved, and a lot of people who just came into whiskey 2 or 3 years ago, they've only ever known high prices. They've never known, like, a Brora from the 70s for like £200 a bottle. They've never known that. So they've only known it to be £1,000 a bottle. So I don't know. I see the market remaining pretty stable for these sorts of things, certainly for rare bottles, for good independent bottlings. I would say, in my honest opinion, I think a lot of we're going to see a lot of liquid coming out from the newer distilleries. I think it'll be interesting to sort of follow that market to see how things go. I think personally, I think a few might struggle. I don't know what your feelings are, and I mean, I wouldn't want to see anyone struggle, because it's a positive thing for us if other distilleries are going out there and talking about, like, 3 or 4 year old whiskey being really good and doing tastings with it, because it's, we don't pay for marketing, so it's beneficial that they go out there and tell that story. Much like Waterford talking about barley varieties and terroir and stuff like that, it has a slight crossover on what we do. So, like, it's a positive thing that they go out and they want to talk about it. So I think personally some of the newer distilleries might find it a little tough. I don't know what your feelings are on that.
Yeah, well, it's the last 6 months have been hard on a lot of them, again, because there's a lot of direct sales which have disappeared. There's also the wonders of the hospitality side of things, especially because, if you're used to selling to bars and that's one of your big things, then all of a sudden you have none. If your distillery tours are a major part of your cash flow, then, if you can't sell cream teas anymore, then, you're in trouble. But no, we shall see. I'll give it another 6 months and we'll see how things sort of shake down. But hopefully, from what I've seen, on the whiskey side, most of the whiskey folks seem to either have been funded well enough to survive it, or have contingency plans. We've been working like you guys have, so having a model which means they can sort of, like, hunker down a bit and sort of, like, push through these things. But loads of change. And this is the thing. I think we'll see the effects of the past year are going to be 5-10 years down the line. As all of a sudden going to be a point where things are going to, the after effects of this will start hitting stocks for mature whiskey and things like that, and that's when we'll see some really interesting stuff. So, but from your guys, because how long has the distillery been going? 2016, you're saying, and it's now like 2020. That's like an interesting number. That's like 3 and a bit years.
So we've got our first 3-year-old coming out. Well, basically, we're finalising all the dry goods on it. We've got bottles, corks, capsules, seals. We have holograms, which I think you'll particularly like, Billy, when you see them. So we kind of saw it as a necessity. We didn't want to do I wouldn't even think about comparing us to Chichibu, but we wouldn't want to do a Chichibu where you start out and then you realise that your capsules slip up and down like that, and you then bring out holograms onto your bottles. So we thought, we might as well just do it early. We're going to bring it in on some of our independent bottlings at a higher price as well, just to kind of secure those. So we've been waiting on dry goods. We've got our samples coming, final samples on our boxes, our cartons, stuff like that, and our labels. We got the label designed. We need to finalise the wording, which I'll probably run past you because you'll correct all my grammar. And again, so we're going to release a 3-year-old single cask very soon.
Yeah, so at some point this year, once everything's fully aligned, just about there with it, and we're all set up at a new bottling plant and everything as well. So we've got.
Is it called a bottling plant?
I'm calling it a bottling plant. It's a big upgrade on our old one, really. So we've got two separate lines in there, one for whiskey, one for gin, and never shall the two cross paths. So two sets of bottling machines and all of that now. So, but yeah, some point this year.
Yeah, we'd like to think it'll be in glass by October.
Whenever, once
in October.
Once everything's ready, holograms will be here in a week or two. Boxes at some point, and then the label design's done. Just need to
printing won't take long.
Yeah, as soon as everything else is in line, then we just take the final strength and press print on the labels, and away we go. So yeah, no, there'll be something this year. So yeah, we've made an interesting decision on that as well, because I think we're talking about the evolution of what we've been up to, and in the end we decided to start release number 1 as cask number 1, which it's kind of a statement of intent, because cask number 1's really good, and it's kind of like, okay, here's our first effort at the distillery. Obviously we were making single malt gin from scratch for about 6-7 months before we laid down cask number 1.
I think also the cask number 1 statement of intent, but also we wanted to give something back to the original crowdfunders and the second round crowdfunders, which was like pretty special. And instead of, kind of marking cask number 1 as like a future, £1,000 a bottle release with a big fancy wooden box, as probably a lot of distilleries are planning with their first ever cask, we thought let's get it out to the crowdfunders, give it to them as their original free bottle that was part of the crowdfunding, as a kind of thanks to them as well. So there's statement of intent, but also a little bit of a nod and a thanks to the guys who were very, very patient with us for a long time, just to say, look, here you go, here's something pretty special, do what you want with it, and hopefully you enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there'll be some big incentives in place not to flip it, so it'll be quite flipping it will be quite detrimental to your future ability to get any more bottles from us. So all data will be logged, and we've got a system in place for that. So all the original round 1 crowdfunders get a bottle anyway. And then we should have enough to fulfill our kind of export and shop commitments, because it's a big barrel. It's a butts. So we should be able to fulfill our. Also, we're doing everything in 500ml bottles, which is what we decided from the very, very, very start. So that stretches it a little bit further. So we should have enough to do all around 1 crowdfunders, the shops that have supported us, and then our sort of export partners can at least get some amount out there all over the world, and even if it's very small quantities, and then we should have enough left over to allow all of the round 2 crowdfunders who basically paid for a whole new warehouse and bottling facility with their cask purchases. We should be able to offer them all the ability to buy a bottle, as long as the outrun's okay.
So loads of stuff's changed. Loads of new things coming down the line, and lots of exciting times ahead, basically, for Dornoch, both the distillery and hopefully the bar as well, which I will hopefully be coming up to visit, hopefully later on this year, if all plans go to plan. So,
as they do.
Oh, plans are always really, really, at the moment, incredibly flexible. Nothing ever changes. So,
yeah, I'm lucky if I'm considering what's going to happen next week at the moment, to be honest. It's well, I with our little work bubble, anything beyond that in real life land, there's not really a lot of forward planning going on.
No,
but hopefully soon, and hopefully things loosen up a little bit by a couple of months' time, so I can come and see you guys and have a few drams.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much for talking to me, and as I say, hopefully see you both soon, and please keep on making fantastic whiskey.
Thanks, Billy. It's been fun. Thank you.